Not this
yeah.
one. Yeah, this one.
Me say yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this one.
Me say yeah, man.
You know him?
Yeah.
Huh?
Me remember say yeah, man.
You know him?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Yellow Rose Code program on UNC USA. I have with me here Mr. Suman Singh and Mr. Ken Dalchan, and as usual, our other friends will join us later in the program. So, in the heat of the Carnival season, and there's a lot going on, a mixture of things happening. And in fact, we just have Dr. Ramo. Welcome, Dr. Ramo, just in time. So, gentlemen, we see the carnival action is heating up in Trinidad and Tobago. And Dr. Ramlo, since you're on the ground there, can you give us a feedback a little about what you're seeing down there?
Well, it's just the usual. I don't think we have anything really different. We have quite a lot of people in the fetes, a lot of the private fetes. Most of the ones we go to is, like Palmy's Fete and Prestige Fete. So these are good, secure fetes, no problems. We haven't had any sort of, crime or car thefts or anything. So it's the same. I mean, Carnival is pretty okay in Trinidad. We have good policing and it's reasonably safe. It's only if you really go into the areas that you're not supposed to go into, and like any country in any city, there's the same problem. So, everything is okay. It's warming up. A lot of the little competitions are on the way. And there's probably going to have more participation in Carnival because people do feel a little safer with this government, I must say. I am going on the beach on Sunday. I have a wedding to go to on Saturday. One of my cousins getting married, and then I'm going up to Sunday on the beach for the weekend. So I'll be in my arrow. A lot of people will go on the beach. So That's another area that the government have to look at in terms of safety. Last year we had a few deaths, and they already had a drowning in Mayaro already last weekend. So these are some of the things, the other things that they have to look at. They don't just focus on Carnival; they have to focus on public safety as a whole in other areas. A lot of people want to be leaving their homes, so they have to look at home, break-ins and all sort of things. So, I guess nothing new, nothing really, same old Carnival.
One of the things I like to people to take all serious. I mean, I would recommend, you're going to the beach, invest in life vests. I would encourage that because, I mean, very easily you can get taken in a water current, and you would think that you've been there, done that so many times, and everything's fine. But I would like to encourage people to invest in the life vests.
Yeah,
And when you go to the
Yeah.
beach, that's something I want to encourage. And under our government, we want to see an improve in the conditions, an improvement in the in the safety part of things, where we have beach police and patrol like how we have here in the U.S. And this is something I've been pushing for a long time. I hope that we can get that. I know the funding will be an issue right now because we're trying to sort out revitalizing our economy, but definitely I want to see some improvement with security on the beach and the facilities and things like that. But I'm going to let Mr. Singh join you there in that discussion for a little bit, and Ken, and then I'm going to catch up with you guys in a few minutes.
No problem.
Yes, Gary, welcome, Doc. And
Yeah. Yes, Sumant.
you know the I don't know if you know Florida boat show started yesterday and it will continue down to the 15th. And exactly what Doc is saying: massive crowds, massive traffic, massive security, not only on land but in the beaches and so on. You see these police choppers in the intracoastal waterway and on the beach itself. So everything is focused strictly on security and enjoyment of the activities around. Now, I think what Dr. Ramrup is mentioning makes sense, but I think security in Trinidad is focused on the carnival itself and very little on the homes, the revelers' homes, the beaches, and what have you. So, I just learning some ideas what I'm seeing here going on and how it is in Trinidad. From what my knowledge is, that Carnival is generally well secured as an activity, but the ancillary services tend to be occupied as well in the festivities, and that leaves a lot of openings for the various activities to take place, like house break-ins, people leaving their house with their family to go up to Port of Spain or Sando, or where the activities are. And certain elements tend to see this as an opportunity. So
Yeah,
that's
definitely,
what I have to
definitely.
say.
Well, Samadia and Dr. Amrup, you guys are on point. Not feeling too well today. I have a little flu coming down with me. Um, Carnival is one of our biggest event. I mean, it is the biggest event in Trinidad and Tobago. And you guys can hear me? Excuse me.
Yes,
Somebody
yes,
can hear me? Yeah.
loud and clear, loud and clear.
And we have to continue to promote it, right? And build on that success so we can showcase our diversity, our culture, you know. And again, also we have a lot of foreigners coming in. So we have to ensure that the venues are safe, right? And as an engineer, I want to lend my voice also towards safety. Now, look, let me just jump back to someone, and Dr. Correct me if I'm wrong. Last year there was a big party in San Fernando on the hill there, San Fernando Hill, and I believe a young lady fell off a cliff. I don't know how she managed to fall off the cliff and died. And the fire and emergency rescue, they took I don't know, I think a couple hours to get or to access her. Um, And I want to believe, right, there were some OSHA violations with regard to the height of the fence and how they, how they vetted the place. I don't think they did their due diligence, because it's sad and tragic to see someone trying to, access the facilities, and she fell off a cliff there and died.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, Ken, but
Now we had an incident. There was a big party again, a carnival party in Jagaramas. I believe it was the heliport, and this thing seemed to have been oversubscribed, right? Um, I believe there were close to about 20,000 persons there, or 17,000, that somewhere around there. Again, we have to look at the vetting of these sites to ensure that it could handle the capacity, right?
capacity. Yeah.
And then we don't want these fets to be oversubscribed, right? If the venue have a CO, certificate of occupation, for 1,000 persons, or 5,000 persons, we don't want to exceed that or triple that volume, right, or that capacity. Now, what was disturbing was the fact that there was a gridlock to leave the um the venue, right? Everyone converged there, and everyone trying to leave. A lot of them, obviously, is a party, Trinidad. You can't blame people. They're going to drink and have a good time. Many of them intoxicated, and some of them were trying to leave via some of the smaller private water vessels, right, for
Okay.
hire. And I don't think these vessels are designed to transport 15, 20 persons. Now, Sumad and Doc, you have persons who are exhausted, uh, partially intoxicated or intoxicated, right? They're tired, they're fatigued, and they getting on a boat with no life vest on. Some of the boats were overloaded, and that is a recipe for disaster also. So that, to me, was a
Absolutely.
major safety concern. And I hope that in the future we don't see this reoccurring again, right? And we could have, a more vetted, more structured, approach with the permitting and stuff. The persons who are issuing the permit should ensure that they do their homework and their due diligence. They make the site visits, OSHA also, and they check all the boxes, right? We need to have adequate police to ensure that the traffic management plan is in effect. They have a backup plan, in the event that there was to be an accident, because that road is a single lane each way. One truck overturning there, and it shuts. It's a nightmare, especially
Mhm.
when that fet is over, right? If there's an accident there, and simultaneously all that happened together, right? And now we have an army base. If there's an emergency, also the army is stuck there. So we have to plan and properly when we hosting these parties, these big fets, and try to ensure that there's multiple access, multiple access
Ingress.
egress,
Yes,
and
yes.
there's a backup plan also, um, you know, and to ensure again people have a good time and they're also safe. And that is the message I wanted to convey here, right? Everyone having a good time. We continue to promote this thing, and everyone is safe. They get home safe. No fatalities in the road from drunk driving and all sorts of stuff, because it will leave a scar, a bad stain on it. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to say there. Sumado, Doc, if you want to expand on that.
Well, well, the
Mhm.
the problem I have is really um what we should say, boy. I don't know, the lack of the lack of
Logistical.
the lack of the lack of government, whether it's this government or past governments, to really get it right. And we have Carnival. I mean, I don't know if you have ever been to Brazil's Carnival, and when you go to other events in developed countries, you have you see a difference. I mean, I go to Miami, and I go to the stadium there in right downtown.
Downtown.
Yeah,
Downtown. Yeah, the
yeah.
American, yeah, it's the American
Right.
Airlines.
The big events, and when you look at how the people get in and get out, and I mean, you have people in excess of 20,000. Where they separate, vehicular traffic from people walking, there's a system. You see, now, all of that said, I went to Beijing and I went on the wall, right, to go to the wall. And it was chaos. It was chaos like what I saw at Flava in Queen's Park, Savannah, in terms of traffic and people moving in and out. I mean, my little granddaughter is, just under 2 years, and I had to hold her, but there were children who were walking in between cars that were driving without any sort of speed limits or any sort of humps, any sort of lighting or anything, and pedestrians were walking in between cars. So the problem I have is that I know I was on the local organizing committee of World Cup cricket in 2007, right? Myself and Nigel Camacho. Nigel Camacho was put as the chair of the medical committee, but he couldn't do the job because he was just there for because of, he was there part of the sports. He was the Trini Posse stand, and I mean he was in the Queens Park over a lot of things. So he got it because of, well, what we say, politics. PNM at the time was in government, so I was nominated to assist him. And regionally, we worked with a Dr. Marian Dukas from Jamaica, who used to be head of PAHO, and she and I, and probably literally, developed with a lot of the chief medical officers throughout the Caribbean a lot of the medical protocols and standard operating procedures for the ICC World Cup that was held in the Caribbean in 2007. I was one of the persons that the ICC sent for training. They had very good consultants that they paid very plenty money for, and they trained myself and a couple other doctors and other police officers and and, and the military officers throughout the Caribbean in basic, a lot of hazard hazmat training. We had crowd management training, right? In other words, and we actually were given quite a lot of notes and teachings on how to manage crowds. We managed in Trinidad, although we had the brown package, we had a legacy, right, where we had standard operating procedures to deal with large crowds in excess of 10 to 20,000 people, right? We set up the venue operating command. We implemented the gold, silver, and bronze commanders,
Uh-huh.
right? And this is what the police is doing, but fire isn't using it. We we did not have police and fire in the stadium, and there was a reason for that. You see, we have to change a lot of what is happening. Let me tell you what happens in Trinidad, right? I mean, I have a dancehall license, so I know what happens, right? What happens is that if you have to have a fete, let us say you want to have a fete in Brian Nara or wherever you want to have a fete, you have to first go to the magistrate, right? You have to get the date. You have to appear before a magistrate. And when you go, right, and you get all your documents, right, court licenses and all this sort of thing, the date and the venue, the estimate of the number of people, you have to, the police and the fire will calculate the number of police officers and fire officers that has to be in that venue.
Uh-huh.
Now they get paid for that, because you have to pay the court, you have to pay them for that. That comes up to be hundreds of thousands of dollars for some of those feds.
Uh-huh.
So the police and fire make a lot of money, right? And what happens is that, let us say you have 5 feds coming up to Carnival in Trinidad. Let us say you have 5, 3 in the north and 2 in south, maybe even more sometimes. You check the amount of police officers and fire officers that are in those venues. Good, just check. And check and see now if a problem occurs in any one or two of those venues, right? They do not even have radios to communicate. They don't even have a command center within the venues. So they don't feed back to a commander in the actual venue. There's something called a VOC, a venue operating command center, right? How it's supposed to happen and how we develop those SOPs for the World Cup. And I was the medical operations manager for Summit of Americas, the fifth Summit of Americas. And I was the US White House liaison medical officer, and I was up in the Hilton in a command center for the US POTUS. This was his first visit out of the United States, Barack Obama, after he won the elections. So I was sent by the US government, right, in Washington and in an army base right, to train they trained me in catastrophic emergencies, crowd management. I had a A1 visa on my passport. I walked into the United States about 10 times for training under the DOH, as well as the Ministry of the Department of Defense, DOD. And I was trained by military as well as other people in crowd management, large crowd management, catastrophic emergencies. I can't even go on to tell you how much they trained me, right? And I, not boasting about it, but when they left, right, I will show you all one of these days if you ever come down. I'll show you two gifts that I got from Barack Obama himself, right, for being the liaison to the White House medical team, and not telling the United States government what they wanted to hear. I told them the facts about Trinidad and Tobago, and that is how during the Summit of Americas and Shogam, right, they were very much involved in building up the capacity for Trinidad and Tobago during those times. What I'm trying to say is that we developed standard operating procedures for large scale events, crowd management, traffic management, right? The implementation of the VOC, the removal of police officers and fire officers from the venue, right? They are responders, right? What they do is they get money for the fete, they walk around with a baton, no guns, of course, and they should not have guns. They walk in through the fete, they eating, they drinking. So if you have a stampede or if you have a problem there, how can they help? How can they help? If you have 40 of them inside there, how they could help? What they could do? Hold on a guy and arrest him? So they're not supposed to be there. What is supposed to happen is that private security is supposed to be hired by the organizers, and this should have a complete number of private private security persons within the compound. In the compound, they're supposed to have what is called a venue operating command center, called a VOC. In that VOC, you're supposed to have what we call commanders, incident commanders, for all the relevant agencies or any entities that are in the compound. And in that VOC, you're supposed to have a fire officer and a police officer and a health officer. These three officers, right, are what we call the bronze commanders, and they will sit in that venue operating command center and sit there with the engineer for the facility, the lighting, the man in charge of the car park, the customer service representative. In other words, then they have about 15 of them, and all of those persons will be speaking directly down using what we call the incident command system down to their line. So, for example, the customer service person will be talking to the customer service people in the radio. The police will be talking back to the the security man who is in the VOC. He will be talking to him, but the police officer who is bronze will talk to the silver commander at the police station in the region. The silver commander will talk to the gold commander who sits at the police command center in Port of Spain. Right? And that is how that coordination works. And in each of the venue, right, that is one police officer will sit in the box. And he will communicate back to the silver commander, which is going to be the regional command center, where one of the police stations, like say we say Port of Spain, one in San Fernando, one in Toco, one in Rio Claro, one in Siparia, one in, if you get my drift. So each one of those police stations will have a silver commander, and all of those will communicate to a gold commander in the police command center in Port of Spain. And at each one of the events, instead of having 40 policemen who obviously will be less now to control traffic, to control thefts, to control a murder, right? To go on a scene of an accident where somebody died on the highway, you'll have less police officers out there and you'll have more of them in the venue. So if you have 5 events in San Fernando, you'll have over 100 policemen all over the place. You understand? So if something really happens in one of the other venues, what will happen is you'll have a shortage of police officers. They must be stationed in such a way that if something happens, they can respond. They are the ones who now after a fete will have to go down and do breathalyzer tests and stay out of the stadium and ensure that drunk drivers don't go and did it. But what they are in the fete. You see? So we have to be very careful in going forward. There are certain things that will have to change. Policing and fire do not have to be in those large fetes. Good. A lot of money is wasted by promoters. Used to come by my place here at Ducks Ranch because I had a dancehall license. So they used to want to come here because in my license I didn't have to have police and fire, right? But if you're going outside, you have to have police and fire, and that is what they're asking for. So a lot of those things have to change, just like we did for World Cup, ICC, Shogam, and Summit of Americas. And if they don't, starting from that, right, obviously there's going to be an absolute number of police officers who are going to be deficient, especially around Carnival, especially during those fetes that are going on before the Carnival, right? It's highly centralized, it's highly, right, it's not logical, right? One man died the other day in one of the feds. He got a cardiac arrest and he died. All right. And the thing about it is the mospit, how they control the mospits are terrible. You have no way that even the stretcher from an ambulance could get into that compound. Even in Flava the other day when I went, the ambulance was outside, right? They had one entrance with four turnstiles, right? And those actually, when you were exiting, you had to go through one of the turnstiles. So there was a point in time where they had a big crowd to go outside, and in the three turnstiles to come in, they had a big crowd to come inside. Not to mention the walking in the traffic. That was another one. The best joke was when you come in now, right, and you have a firearm, you'll beep off with a guy with a handheld scanner. Then they will send you in an area now to disarm your firearm, put it in a safe, and walk out. When you come back out now, hear the big joke now. You go back to the tent and you collect your firearm. And when you collect your firearm now, you stand up in a big crowd now waiting to go outside. You could very much else go back in the crowd because they have no control of that. So what was the whole thing?
Mhm.
You understand? So it is really, really pathetic when it comes to knowing that there is a way to do it, right? There is a way to do it. And I remember when I went into ODPM in 2011, there was the flu tag or the flog tag, right? Red Bull, right? Event, which also had about 25,000 people down here in the peninsula, Chagaramas. And exactly the same thing that happened a couple of days ago is the exact same thing happened then. And two people died, three people died actually. Two boating accidents and one person died in the fit, right? And if you Google it, you'll find it and you read all about that flog tag event. And it's exactly the same thing happens when you have a big fete down in the savannah. I remember, right, when I was in ODPM, we gave them a training on how to deal with that
Because we lost Dr. Roy.
Doc, you still there?
I think we lost him there.
Yeah, you guys pick up until he joins now.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
you
madam,
know what, Gary? Ken, why can't we use that crowd management um, report and do, a blueprint for all these pet promoters and the government and whoever it is, that they can have access to that and make sure they meet the particular metric in hosting feds and large scale events, let's say over 10,000 or 5,000 or 20,000 people and so on. Starting, for the very basic inflow, ingress, egress, road management, traffic management, sea access, sea ambulance, whatever it takes. Develop
right,
a blueprint
right.
and scale it. Okay, if you have 5,000, and you must know, don't tell me the promoters don't know how many tickets they sell. And that is BS, you know.
Yeah.
So, upfront is 5,000. And if you have 6,000 people, that means everybody's compromised should something happen there,
Yeah, because
right?
Samad, um, Dr. Ramap mentioned someone had a heart attack or something in
Yeah.
FET,
How you
right?
get it out?
Now, if you have, and I want to go back, I want to go back, draw your attention to what I mentioned previously, and it was very concerning, was the big FET in San Fernando up in the hill,
Mm-hmm.
where the young lady, I think she went to use the bathroom or something, or I think the bathrooms were dirty, and she went somewhere. outside of the control area, and she, I don't know if the lighting was poor or there were no lighting
Lost Ken
whatsoever.
there for a minute.
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah, Gary, you hear me? Gary mentioned something, yeah?
Yeah, go ahead, Ken. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as I was saying, and this was a big party in San Fernando, which we read in the newspapers, right? And the young lady went to use the bathroom, and apparently, according to the article, the bathroom weren't in that tip top condition, or it weren't serviced or cleaned properly. So I guess she went outside of a controlled space there or area, and there were no fence or no kind of barriers and stuff. And I think probably because of poor lighting or no lighting whatsoever, she managed to fall off a cliff.
Ah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the response team, the emergency response team, took hours, according to the article, to get to her, right? And I believe it was, I don't know how much, 2 or 3 hours, they had to come down there. I mean, you have persons walking around, in an elevated area in the dark. Again, that is a recipe for disaster. And that is why we need to have OSHA, we need to have the other regulatory bodies to come in here and properly vet the place and say, okay, this is a clean bill of health, or this is a concern here, there's a high risk here, you need to put up a permanent fence about 9 feet tall, or you need to put something here, etc. Right. And the same
Correct.
thing with this party in the peninsula in Chaguaramas. Again, I'll echo there. Where we had close to, yeah, again, I'll echo there.
I think 20,000 people there.
Right.
Over.
But again, Sumad, that is a single lane each way,
I know.
right?
But
It's just
Western
one
Main
lane.
Road. The
And
Western
the
Main
road,
Road.
yes, and the road in that Chaguaramas road is very narrow, right? In some areas, I mean, it is, I think the lanes are maybe about 10 feet or 12, or 11
Yeah,
feet
yeah, it's
wide,
very, very
right?
narrow. Very narrow. Yeah. You're
Sorry
right.
about
So
that, guys. I got logged off there just now.
that's all right. That's all right. So yeah, so I think health and safety is concerned and it should be taken seriously,
Yeah, I think
right?
they have to revise the entire crowd management policy.
Yeah,
They also have to revise the entire issuing of licenses for events. I think they should have what is called an all-in-one shop rather than what happens now is you have to go to police, you have to go to fire, you have to go to health, you have to go to the magistrates court. I think the government, yeah, they should have an all-in-one
All of
like
that
a
should fall under
thing.
Homeland Security.
Yeah, they should have one entity
right.
that you
But you
go,
know,
you
Doc,
submit everything, and you get your EMA, you cut everything in one place, you get all your forms, it goes into your licensing committee, they meet, you go to the hearing and whatever, and they have to make it more feasible, and they have to change the legislation with respect to the requirement for police and fire in the venues. They should not
right.
have any police and fire in the venues except in any event over about 1,000 to 1,500 people. They have to have what is called a venue operating command center. And in that center, you have a police officer who links back to the silver commander at the police station, right? Because as I said, the problem is that if you have multiple events, right, going on at the same time, right, you would better to have a command center in a police station with a silver commander, and in each of the feds, you have one police officer with a radio that connects back to the silver commander. If there is a need for police response, then it's better that the police have staged vehicles and teams and tactical teams staged so that if something happens at one venue, they can all go to that venue and sort it down. Rather than you have 10 police officers in each one with 40, 50 police officers and less policing on the outside, right? And that is what you have. You have an absolute reduction of policing on the outside when you have plenty fets going on in this country, all over the country. At one point, anytime coming up close to Carnival, you might have about 10 to 15 events occurring at the same time where you have gatherings of over 1,500 to 2,000 people, right? So it's better you have the police outside staged to respond right? To
Hmm.
reduce crime, to reduce alcohol driving, right? To reduce larcenies, right? To mitigate safety issues on the roads, businesses, whatever. Then those police officers sitting in fets without a radio, sitting down in all over the place, moving around, and they can't do anything in the event that you have a stampede,
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That is terrible. Those things have to stop if the country really wants to go forward and have this brand that we have, right? Traffic systems, right, that removes pedestrians from vehicular traffic, right? Parking in such an area that, like, that whole. Anybody ever went to Banff National Park?
Yeah, yeah. I was in Banff a couple
When you to
times.
go there, you have to go online and you have to
Yeah,
pay to enter the park,
yeah,
right? When you
yeah.
enter the
Of course.
park, right, it's seamless. That whole Chaguaramas Peninsula has to be a national park, right? The whole place there should be a national reserve, right? That whole peninsula. So going into there, it should be like Banff, right? They have to create parking areas, right, where they could actually people could go and park the vehicle and have the Trinidad and Tobago the bus, the PTSC shuttle people from there, or other private arrangements for the event from outside the city, right, into the city, into Chaguaramas. Right, there is
yeah,
no other way.
yeah,
To get into there. All persons who have legitimate business there, they have to have their own separate what we call permits to get in there, right? Because they have the restaurants, they have the yacht clubs, and whatever it is, and all of those will have special permits to go through the checkpoint, right? They have to pay an annual fee to have that permit to get in there. People who have restaurants and whatever, what they have to do is they have to book them by a point. You have to make reservations. Once you make the reservations, you get a barcode, right? The barcode will come through the restaurant to your phone, and when you're passing the checkpoint, you just scan the barcode and you get in with your vehicle, because the restaurants will have car parks. See, these are things that have to. It has been done elsewhere. In Canada, you can't go to some of the beaches now and you have to book. You cannot drive to Wasaga Beach and all kind of thing now again, right? You
yeah,
have to book before because they're cutting down the amount of people in those areas. You have to get a barcode sent to your phone. You have to pay, and then you'll be allowed to park. When you go to Banff National Park, right, you have to go to a massive parking area, which they grade down.
Mm-hmm.
And then they
Mm-hmm.
have shuttles will take you to Lake
Like
Louise
it.
and you can't drive your car in again. You know,
yeah. You
it's
see,
Yeah.
gone. Yeah,
yeah,
But
you
it
see
is.
also
Go
very critical. For example, right? Um, before we even get to all the permitting and stuff, one question I would want to ask is this: in transportation engineering, the vehicle to capacity ratio. Once that exceeds one, then you have a problem. So what I would want to also include is that, hey, your vehicle capacity ratio exceeds one. So what are you going to do to manage that? Here's what we could do. The VIP tickets, you could park close to the party or the fete, right? You have exclusive parking, and the others could do the shuttle, right? And this way we can maintain the vehicle to capacity ratio under one. Again, this is for emergency response. If there's a major fire, or look, this is a residential area. There could be a fire in a residence or someone's home, and emergency response fire and what I was trying to get in there, and they're stuck in the gridlock, right? There's an accident also at the same time, and they're stuck in the gridlock. People are going to die, right? Somebody in their home got a heart attack outside of the Fed, right? So we have to think about the community also and safeguard the community and not put them at elevated risk. So it has to be properly planned with good consultants. And Doc, you made a very good point. I think they need people like yourself to be a consultant to some of these, statutory permitting process with the magistrate and stuff, because these people are not experts. They don't understand crowd management and stuff. They're not certified, right? Just there,
Yeah, but
they think, okay, we've been doing this for ages. Yeah, go ahead and issue the thing. But when you have 25,000 persons converging, in addition to the local traffic, the local residential community, and whoever is conducting commercial activities there, right? They're going to exceed the vehicle, the volume to capacity ratio for the infrastructure. Is a one lane in, one lane out. I mean, one single lane in, one single lane out, right? Versus four lanes each way. So again, that is a recipe for disaster. So we have to look at the infrastructure. We have to evaluate the infrastructure to see if we can handle that excess load.
yeah. But
You know,
Mike, Ken, the problem is that it was done before. And what is amazing me is that the SOPs exist, right? All of those, all that I'm talking about here is existing in documents, right? Now, what it is that when we talk up, look at what happened with Flower, and I think I wrote about that, right? You have one exit, right? One turnstile and three entrance in one exit and entrance. One exit and entrance. Now they have small smaller areas for like people who are manning their own shops and whatever, right? They have like a little gate, like in between for them to go in and out. They didn't have a separate VIP entrance area for like VIPs to come in, right? When I was there, the minister was trying to get in into one of the turnstiles, and they locked down the entire turnstile with a lot of chaos just for her to come in. You see, so really and truly, my point is it has been done before. But what we have now is a lack of a sense of not urgency, I would say, a sense of need to actually change it and create the necessary legislation, right, to put it in place so that these things change. And one of the things is that if it is happening with the simple events like Flava, which is if you go there, right? I mean, I was there about a week ago, and it is massive chaos. It is plenty people walking left, right, and center, and with one entrance and exit. I mean, it is amazingly chaotic, right? Not to mention the movement of people in between cars, and it is a recipe for disaster. So, I'm hoping that next year, right, before Carnival, that the authorities listen to some of us and get a little think tank together and let us sit down and make this experience, because it's gonna happen again. It happened for the cricket, right? Recently, the World Cup cricket, and it happens for CPL, right? Brian Nara, they're talking about FETs, but the traffic to go into Brian Nara down south is a massive gridlock, right? Massive people movement in between cars. It happened for World Cup cricket the other day, and it happened for it happens every game that they have CPL down there. So it's not something that happened down by down in the peninsula, in Chagres Peninsula. It's something that happens in a lot of major events in Trinidad and Tobago. It used to happen for Marshall Montano when he used to have his fete in the stadium in Port of Spain. Massive gridlock for Marshall Montano, right? Army fete in Queens Park, right? So we need to get this sorted out. It has to be sorted out.
I
So
think I think
can they develop a blueprint, Doc, and say, well, okay, in the case of 5,000, a crowd of 5,000, this
We
is the
have
procedure,
yeah,
the SOPs.
we have international standards when
Doc,
it
we're
comes
losing your
to
voice. We're
yeah.
losing your voice.
We have international standards when it comes to crowds and crowd volume and venue and space and the amount of exits and the amount of toilets, and there are international guidelines for that. Like for massive shelters, like you have, with asylum, and Sphere has a booklet that gives you a lot of things, how much water you have to have, how much exits, and the entrance. I mean, listen, there are guidelines that are international, right? If you go to the British document, you see there's a whole booklet on crowd management strategies, and it has quite a lot of good information. It's not cut and paste. It's something that is used for massive rallies in the United States. It's not something they just go and say, look, I have a political rally. It's when you have these big games like NFL, and I mean, there's the logistics that goes into that is massive. It's not just police and fire and event. It is a lot of the local government people, multi stakeholders, right? You might have people to park in Queen's Park. You might have the stadium as park and ride. You might have all the
yeah.
Manny Ramjon and all the stadiums coming up, at the Bolden. I think people should be parking there and shuttle to the venue, right?
Yeah.
All of these things is anytime you have a venue like CPL and whatever, where you have 15 to 20,000 people, these things have to be a natural process, right? You cannot just leave it to the venue to deal with the traffic, right? And then
Well,
then remember when you're talking about traffic, a venue, I'm already telling you, you have about 20 police officers and 25 officers inside. That's 40 officers who should be outside.
You see, some gentlemen, when I consistently reach out to certain ministers, right? and tell them it is urgent that we talk to them and how critical it is. And they keep keeping us in limbo. I'm going to say this tonight. And who vex,
Right.
vex, right? Um, my and our objective here is risk management, and also, I mean, we are big on the safety issue, and the reason why we reach out is because we are trying to stop our government from looking stupid and be more organized. Okay, the objective here is to help our government to succeed. So when these ministers don't feel that we are relevant to have a conversation for 5 minutes with them, right? This is why we end up where we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Gary, part of it too is that remember all these ministers and they have advisors, eh? And who you think are the advisors? You think they are the best of the lot, or the friends and family and this one and that?
Well, the advisors are the people that's already put in place by the government that the party we have replaced. So the thing about it here is that they fail to understand what this team is about and what the objectives. So when I make it an urgent request that we need to meet, there's certain things we're trying to put in place to let them know that that we can do certain things. But when you give us the opportunity for a 5 minute conversation, this is why we end up where we are. We are in government a few months now, right? This stink and dirty fed, as dirty as stink it is, we need to make sure that it organized. And then the place the venue has to be get approval, and all the things that Dr. Ram was saying has to be put in place, and there's nowhere 50 police could handle that magnitude of crowd if things were to go helter skelter. So the ease of access, I mean, there are plenty of places in Trinidad and Tobago that are very remote that you could have access to, where that you have multiple access out. You need to get out there. And again, the transportation should have been provided. All of these things should have been organized, a park and ride and everything. And that infrastructure plan that we have, about building this causeway and other thing, I mean, it will cost some money down the line, but it has value, it has worth. Okay? So go ahead, gentlemen.
But well, Gary, I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, look, Central Trinidad, if you want to call it Couva North and Shogunas West there, where they overlap, where they meet, sorry, right? There's a big area there that's close to the coast, it's bounding the coast.
Mhm.
And we have a ferry that's operating from San Fernando to San Fernando to Port of Spain, right? The fast ferry or something like that. Now, we could also put in the infrastructure and have a terminal in Chaguanas, right? And
Mhm.
one in Couva and service those areas also. So the central part of the island is not isolated. And they have that transportation, at their fingertips where they can do a park and ride. And in developing that, what we could do now is try to develop that area there. Because again, we have the infrastructure and the space to put in the roads to access east, south, and north, right? And then the west now, which is the obviously water, the
Right.
ferry could shuttle people to
Correct.
San Fernando, to shuttle people to Port of Spain. Who's drinking and driving? You take in the ferry. And then when you get to the park and ride, you could call your person to pick you up, or you get a taxi or something, right? And also, we can now designate certain parking areas, A, B, C, or we do it like a Disney, right? I mean, Disney on a daily basis handle tons of thousands of
Mhm.
vehicles,
Mhm.
and everything runs smoothly, right? Because it's well organized, and there are people there who knows what they have to do, and they have a well vetted, system,
Yeah,
right, to move in and out
Ken,
easily.
and
Mm.
what it is that these days, right, with the modern smartphone, you know what I mean? As I said, like if we have to go to like Wasaga Beach, right, in Canada, or certain parks, right, you have to go online, okay, and you have to log on, right, and then you have to pay a small fee, not much, right, and then you get a barcode sent to your phone, right. or your app, as the case may be.
And
Sometimes you have to download the app,
that's the
right? And that
entry.
allows you to pass through the checkpoint. And they will not, the computer automatically sums up the total number of people. Because if you are 20,001, you're not going to get through as 20,001. It stops at 20,000. Right? Now, you can, from point 14, you could log on to that government website or whatever it is. And I think we should have, I think, like in Canada, you have a Ministry of Public Safety, right? In Canada, in England, it's Cobra, right? In the United States, you have FEMA, and it's public safety does not come under, right now in Trinidad and Tobago, it doesn't come under any ministry, one specific ministry, right? National security seems to think that crime is the only thing that they're fighting right now, right? But safety as a whole, I never really wanted to have, right, fire services, right, in homeland security, because fire services comes under public safety, right? I think that civil defense,
But Homeland Security, Doc, I think I have disagree there because Homeland Security should be public safety.
no, this what I'm saying. I think
One.
that I
Okay.
personally feel
But having the
that
right people to govern
homeland
on it and
security,
understand what we're trying to do,
yeah, I
is
think
what
that,
has a hell of a lot
yeah,
of things to do with it.
I think in the Trinidad context, right, Homeland Security should just deal with policing, right? Policing, when you have an accident on the highway, good. 9 times out of the 10, the first person on the scene is a police officer. Good. A lot of those police officers are not trained in resuscitation, right? All they do is they cordon off the scene and wait till fire services come, right? Fire services, right, is safety, primarily safety. ODPM should be the national authority for public safety and coordinate with all the safety agencies. Civil defense, it shouldn't be defense, it should be civil defense. Because under civil defense, the military has a role in public safety and emergencies and disaster management. What you have is the military working under defense and ODPM working under homeland security. And in a disaster, it is the military who has to provide the emergency search and rescue because police can't do it, right? And fire services have to mobilize from their police stations. So the military have to be poised to provide that emergency rescue, search and rescue, air, land, and sea, right? Coast Guard, everything before the fire services even come on the scene. So I think a lot of those things we have to revisit it, right? Things like OSHA, EMA, right? All of those things should come under a public safety umbrella, right? Because really and truly, we have nobody mitigating public safety. When it evolves into a disaster, then ODPM somehow comes on the scene. So really and truly, what we have to really do is to try to have a public safety entity that coordinates the other public safety entities and and mitigate disasters before they happen. ODPM has that responsibility, but ODPM is just a division in national security. It's not an institution, it's not an agency, it's not an authority. ODPM has to change to become the public safety authority, and that allows them to coordinate all the other public safety agencies. Police has a certain amount of safety issues when it comes to criminal activities, but on the highways, right? Remember, you have the Ministry of Works that has the transport commissioners. In the local government, you have the police officers who are dealing with the local government, right? So in other words, then when you're looking at safety as a whole, I think that we have to sort of get everything, in one umbrella, like the Ministry of Public Safety in Canada, Cobra in England, and in Europe they have public safety agencies
Y-
that are
y-
very, very important in
y-
tying up all the public safety things. So
y-
this is
And
what we have to start with
yeah, and Doc,
going
I
forward.
totally agree with you. That is a very good point, and it's something we should exploit. Because look, let me just draw reference again to the party in Chagaramas this couple of days here, right? The infrastructure couldn't handle the volume, right? Because it exceeded the capacity, the design capacity for those roads, those
Right.
single lane each way.
Yeah.
Now, people will now, a safety hazard was created as a result of that, where people were boarding these little wooden boats, overloading
That
it,
that is
half
Ken.
drunk.
That's another problem in Flocktar. You see that boat thing,
Yeah.
right? When you get up, when you have to. My brother had a boat in New York, right? And he has one in Florida, right? And one of my relatives have a boat in Canada. Now, before you can actually put a boat on the water, right? You have to have special licenses you have to get.
Yes,
Then you
correct.
have to have an inspection, right? And then when they come on the boat, you have to have certain things in that boat. Otherwise, you can't even take that boat in the water,
That's right.
right? You have to
That's
go through
correct.
certain training, right? A boat has to be licensed, and the Coast Guard has to have that registered, and you have to have a specific number on the boat that feeds back to the Coast Guard.
And it's
So,
designed for a certain amount of occupants.
listen, let me tell you something. And if the Coast Guard pass and they type that number on your boat, and they see you have
Yeah.
10 people and you're only supposed to have five, right away they remove you from the water. So you
Yep.
see, there is no regulations at all when it comes to having a boat in Trinidad and Tobago. None. None. And these
Yep.
Yeah.
things, we told them that the last time in Flocktat. I wrote a document that was sent to the Ministry of National Security. I was in the Ministry of National Security. I presented it at a meeting with the minister at the time. That was Mr. Sandy. All right. And I told him, I said, you all need to drive this from with the Ministry of the Attorney General, right? The Ministry and Legal Affairs, and try to develop the legislation to begin putting regulatory controls on all these small boats, anything that goes on the water, you know. And
W-
I don't know what happened with it after. It's just dropped. So
Because that was very, very concerning. I mean, disturbing to see that these people have drunk, tired, exhausted, and
and
they're
no,
now
and let me tell
boarding
you,
these
no life
boats,
jackets at all, and
no life
and
jackets,
terribly,
but because the gridlock, the infrastructure couldn't handle the exit, right? That volume of
and
cars leaving there.
uh, what we are saying is that you see, this is what I'm talking about, the legislation, right? When you anytime you have certain numbers, that's what Sumant asked, right? There are certain numbers of events, right? Event
Doc,
numbers.
before you go on, I have a
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
At this stage in the structure of things, what entity or government organization gives the approval for this event to take place there? Does
All
the
right.
mayor Port
You
of Spring
have
does
to
that or?
no. The according to there is a licensing committee, right? Well, I guess it will be the Port of Spain licensing committee, right? Where the event manager, organizer, promoter will have to appear. They will have to go before the magistrate of the licensing committee or the licensing committee chairman, and they have to apply, right, for the license to have the event. And when they go now, they must have fire approval, police approval, EMA approval, court license approval, and health approval, right?
Okay.
So when they go there now, they must have venue layout, the date of the event, right? Blah blah blah, and these are documents that have to be presented, and they stand before the magistrate and the license committee. Okay, well,
Excuse me, Doc,
how
I hear
much
an
people?
echo. I
They
hear
will
an echo
ask.
there.
They will ask how much persons, and then what will happen is that when you give the number of estimated ticket sales, right? When you give the number of estimated ticket sales, I don't know if I'm echoing or somebody. Maybe you could probably turn off your mic if
Yeah, just
everybody
turn off
has
my
turned
mic
it
there, but
off.
I still hearing the echo.
Right. Let me see now. You hearing
Yeah,
it now?
it's much
Yeah,
better,
much
much better.
better there.
Right, good. Yeah, I think it probably is the Wi-Fi. So what it is that when you right, this is what they have to do. So when you go there now, right, um, you say, okay, well, I have enough fet which estimated to have 5,000 ticket sales, right? Then the police then will say, okay, well, you need to have. They just calculated. They will say, okay, you need to have 20 officers, right? 5,000 is normally about 20 officers, and fire will say, well, you'll have to have about 10 officers, right? So that means now you'll have to pay for each time an officer goes. There's a amount of money that you have to pay each officer. So you have to pay the police, go to the police now and pay that, go to the fire and pay that, and then each one of those officers will get that money for going to that fete. Okay, that is how it is done. When you have a fete of 1,500 to 2,000, the average cost for police and fire is $60,000. Now, people don't hear that. They don't. They don't. Nobody tells that. They run it down in court. It's something that is like a fight in court to make sure that they have the police and fire there. Right? I know for a fact because I have been in court for my license and I see that happening. And there's a big problem they still have with me here because I never needed fire and police because I had the dancehall license for the whole year. I didn't need a special venue dancehall license. So I know all about what I'm talking about because I live it on a daily basis, right? So what I'm saying is that to go down in the peninsula, first of all, if any FET that is flagged of over 5,000, right away, there are other agencies and institutions that have to come on board. Like when we plan the World Cup cricket. You see, when we planned the World Cup cricket, our venue was supposed to hold between 10 to 20,000 people, right? Anytime you have an event that has more than 10 to 20,000 people, you have to bring all the key stakeholders, right, before that license is granted. And that is not part of the legislation, right? So that is where the problem is in this country. So what you have to do, remember, the Shagaramas Development Corporation is a whole entity there, you know. There's a whole board with people there that people have to go through, you know. So they are the ones who should have been they are the ones who should have called a meeting, right, with the military, that is the venue operator, the promoter, right, the police, right, that is the police, the fire, health, a representative from the community, a representative from the Ministry of Works, right? A representative from the chamber or the business community, right? And a representative from the military, because you have the Coast Guard will have to come into operation. So right away, right, when you have that meeting before that event, they're supposed to convene that meeting, do tabletop exercises, run down all the gaps that they're supposed to have and identify the gaps, develop the contingency planning and the consequent management planning for them, right? And therefore, what you would have had is you could have had water taxis that would have been poised. You would have had park and ride, which would be available. That, for example, from the Brian Lara come right up, you would have people parking, and you would have the PTSE or private shuttles providing shuttles straight into the peninsula, dropping off and coming and pre-positioning out of the peninsula, right? So in other words, then we did it for World Cup. We did it for World Cup. We did it. We did that when we had functions as Rotary Club. When we have just 500 people, we had to do it for the Chagonas Peninsula. They are park and ride, right? That you could be used. What we did is we created permits where you give people permits to come into Port of Spain. We did that for World Cup. People who had businesses and things were given permits long before to come in. Trucks to deliver goods and all this sort of thing were allowed. They had special permits. Now, just like I go to Wasaga Beach, right, and in Canada, I can now it's easier. You can actually go online now if you're living in Point Fortin, Cedars, and anything. Go online, right? Get your parking Atto Bolan, right, or Brian Nara, or wherever along the way. You park your vehicle or you get your maxi to drop you there, and then from there you have national transport take you into the thing. If you could pay $1,500 for a ticket, or $1,000 for a ticket, or $300 for a ticket, you could afford to pay a $50-$60 for that shuttle service. So this is what has to be done, and it has to be done based on the numbers of people who are estimated to attend any particular event. It will happen again for CPL coming up this year. It will happen again if you have any big fets in the Chaguaramas Peninsula. It will happen again because it always happens on a long weekend in the Chaguaramas Peninsula. Is the same problem. And a long weekend, you can't go into when we go down the islands for a long weekend. We just have to make sure and leave early enough to beat that traffic to come back out of down the islands. I say no, yeah, down the island, DDI. So I am suggesting, as you say, Gary, is that okay, Carnival is almost over, right? We can't change a lot of the things that, suddenly we could go and change it, because I was hoping that after I talked about Flava, right, that somebody would have gone back now and put the police barriers and allow the pedestrians to go in a separate route and let the vehicles go in a separate route. But nobody took me on, because I wrote it. It was on national papers. It was on our chat where half the ministers were on the chat. So obviously nobody really listened to me. I even sent it for Peter Kanhai, right? I sent it for him, and he's the chairman. So obviously they say, well, it don't make sense getting into it because it's allow it and run, and nobody here getting injured and nobody here dying. So yeah, we can leave it just so. But that has to change next year. Things have to change, really.
Yeah, because it's a matter of public safety,
Yeah, and I
right?
mean it is not, it is that, you see, once this government could actually make a dent into those kind of things, so that when a person who could vote for them in those marginal seats come out with their family and go to Flava and get a nice park, right? They come out and they are guided by persons to a walking area, and they walk with your children, and you're not getting in between cars, right? They go and they have a massive entrance where you have about 5 or 10 portals to enter. And when you're exiting, it's a free exit. You don't have to go through the entrance turnstiles. You could walk out a big area, because exits not supposed to have turnstiles and things to come in. You could have the turnstiles, you could have multiple, but you don't need that. When you go to that now and you come home and you say, ah boy, you know what? I really seeing a difference. This is really a difference. When you go up Maracas and you look out and you get a nice little washroom, right, where you can go and take a pee after driving for so long. You have diabetes, right, and you don't have to go and pee in the bush, right, and you have a nice toilet. Those are the things that make a difference, and they go vote for you in 2030.
Yeah.
It's the
Uh,
simple things, the simple
y-
things. Those
Absolutely.
is what the marginal see people, because these are the middle class, upper class people who vote parties. It is what makes the difference in this country. The marginal seats. They did not come out to vote for PNM. A lot of people did not go and vote for UNC. UNC won because PNM people did not come out to vote. People have to analyze why they won the election and why they lose elections. They're forgetting very quickly.
Yeah. Doc, I wanted to jump back.
Based on the resources that we have currently, I am sure there were ample venues that we could have utilized that could have prevented this, but this kind of a chaos. So I would like to get some clarification, Doc, on how the approval goes about
But
for
see,
this kind of
basically, what
event.
it is that right now you don't even have to get anybody else involved. That's the problem, right? A venue,
Also,
you
there's
go to
so there's
you go
no
to a venue,
approval
right? So
required, no
you go to
approval.
the military and you say, look, we have to have a 20,000 fet. Brian Nara Blancas, because Unicode said they're not allowing any sporting facility to have a fet, right? So they started looking, right? So Prestige, we went to Skidder's Park, right? In this big Fed 15, 20,000 normally held at Brian Nara, where you have the capacity for that. They now went to the venue. You just go, you come to Dr. Ramrap and you say, well, you want to have a Fed in your compound, right? So when they come to me now, I will say, okay, I have a dancehall license. You don't need police and fire. Get your private security, lock up the gates, right? Ticket as usual. I will do the bar. You pay the rental for the compound, but you have to get your private security, because I have a facility already with a dancehall license. Now, in this case, they don't have a dancehall license at the compound, right? They don't. It's not a fet hall, right? It's a venue. It's a venue with a lot of space. So they say, okay, we will allow it, because nobody ain't telling us anything, right? Good. But when they do that now, they have to go and apply to the licensing committee of the area and go before a magistrate and present all of these documents. And right away, that has nothing to do with saying, look, the promoter must meet with the CD, with the Chaguaramas Development Corporation. They must meet with the Ministry of Health. They must meet. There's nothing that says that they have to do that. What they have to do is they have to go and get EMA, right, and get a license for the variation of the song. They have to get that approval. They have to go to court to get the court license approval for that day, right? They have to go to police to get the police approval. Well, the police will give the approval because they know they will get 40 people in the fete at X amount of dollars. They go make some money, right? And they go put their friends, they go send the guys there. Fire will like to do it, no problem, because fire will say, look, I will send one ambulance and I will send 20 of my officers. So all they have to pay us $100,000 for this fete. They probably get paid about, for this event, they probably get about $200,000 or $300,000. Good. So in other words, then fire and police would give no problem because they already getting money for that. That's how it works. That is
And
the approval.
and police overtime for security, right?
Well, the problem is that they don't charge overtime. But what they do is they charge for the event. So, for
Yeah, well,
example, if
yeah. I
I
mean,
say
well,
40,
police charging for police time. Then, I mean,
well, yeah, well, I mean, what will happen is that the shortage of police officers you have when you take 40 people and you put them in that fit is you have 40 police officers outside short to manage traffic, to manage, other things that are going on in the country. And this is why I am saying that the way it's supposed to be done, like in big rallies all over the world, in political rallies and big events and things all over the world, and big sporting events that happen every single day all over the world, and these big stadia, football in Europe and whatever, NFL and big games in Canada, hockey where 10, 20,000 people go, right? In the Scotia Velodrome in Toronto, 25,000 people go in every weekend to see, baseball. Let me tell you something. These things are routine, but you don't have police in those. You have security for the venue and private security. The police are outside with the squad cars. They're there now. And if a problem occurs, like a riot or a gunshot, waiting happening. Police coming from outside. Tactical squads coming with the gear, right? They're coming in with riot squad and bomb thing and thing, and they're coming from outside. You don't have 40 people inside. What they could do, what 40 people could do inside? What the hell they could do? And they don't even have a radio communicating with each other because the big loud music. How you arrange a police response when 40 people inside there and no communication between each other? You see?
This I laughing at this thing here, doc. I don't know. I seen
And I'm not
this.
lying, I'm telling you exactly what happening. So
Uh,
if you have four feds in Trinidad and Tobago, let me say you have a big fet in Ozone, and you have a big fet in by Bayanara House, and you're having a big fet in Skinner's Park, and you have a big calypso competition with 15,000 people in Queen's Park. All of these have police officers inside it. Because to get the license to have it, you have to have police officers and fire officers. Check now, multiply that by the amount of police officers who are supposed to be now. They will be the off-duty ones, right? But what happens is that basically they do it in such a way that they get a job because there's money.
Hmm.
I don't know, but I mean, no one. No one thinks about these things, or everybody
No,
thinks about
because
these
people
things.
don't know. People don't understand. It's only the promoters know that. The promoters know that they have to spend plenty money for police and fire. And if they don't tell anybody. I mean, if you multiply 20,000 people, right, by $400 or $300 for this fete, let me say $300. That's just look at that. How much millions of dollars they make in that fete? It's very easy to pay 100 or $200,000 for police and fire.
By the way, children, basically.
Basically, that's what's happening. But you see
So,
now, if the licensing committee had said that if you have over 5,000, which are the peninsula, knowing the history of the peninsula, what they should have said is before that license is approved, you have to meet with all the stakeholders. Good? Get together, have a meeting with all the relevant stakeholders. And that includes traffic management. I'm not just talking about police management. I'm talking about Ministry of Works. I'm talking about the Coast Guard in terms of using vessels, the Fishermen's Association, the Water Taxi Association. I'm talking about getting all the stakeholders because all the contingency planning, they do what is called a tabletop exercise where they create these little scenarios and everybody on the table representing each of the stakeholders, the business community would say, okay, well, boy, what happened? My business go close down. You know what I mean? And then the police in the meeting will say, okay, I tell you what, for that day, right, we'll give you all a permit. We'll have a roadblock, right? We'll announce to the promoter that people coming from south try to get a park and ride there. Go and get, because you're making money, go and get a park and ride. Right? Find out a place where you could park 40, 50 people. So people coming from deep south, people coming from central, people coming from east, whatever. They must find an area, right, where you could park, because if the event is in the morning, right, a lot of malls will be closed, right? A lot of the parking facilities in Port of Spain will be closed. They don't have no vehicles there. So if you park in a vehicle there from, let me say, 10 o'clock in the night to 8 o'clock in the morning, basically, you could probably find park that, because nobody else having fets around there, right? So you have common sense. You could you could even park cars in the savannah because nothing going on after midnight to morning. So you could park about maybe 500 cars there and have shuttles, PTSC shuttles transporting people like we did for World Cup cricket from there down to the peninsula. Less traffic and everything else. You see? So I am just saying that this is what needs to be done. And how the criteria should be is that the government should make a policy statement, right? Events between 1,000 to 5,000 X, Y, and Z. Events between 5,000 and 10,000 X, Y, and Z. So that means that when you're having a CPL, the CPL organizers, instead of making millions of dollars, right, you could take at least about $200,000, $300,000. Set up the meetings with the local business community, the Ministry of Works in terms of the highways, PTSC in terms of the buses, right? Maybe a couple of maybe the sports association in terms of public parking people by the swimming association, have a big car park there at Oboland for that CPL game, so that you do like what we did for World Cup. Use park and ride and shuttle the people down. So you'll have less traffic jam to go in. And then when you're talking about the venue, you create the pathways so that when your taxi drops you off and you're walking into the compound, or you finish your game and you're walking out of the compound, you should not be intermingling between emergency vehicles and catering vehicles and all sort of thing, right? So when caterers and then coming in, they should do that early, and they shouldn't be running the vehicle catering whilst it had people coming to events. All of that should be finished. You see, so there are certain things that has to be done in a standard operating procedure.
And Doc, you made a good point there, and that we should have a dedicated group within a ministry, right, with its own head, right, safety, whatever it is we want to call it, and they should be dedicated, especially to these events. Now, if it's under national security, they're not fighting crime. That's something. Crime is something different,
I
right?
think the ODPM, when we did the World Cup,
Be-
the ODPM was responsible for that public safety. So ODPM was the one who ran the VOX, the Venue Operating Command Center, right? The ODPM is the agency that is responsible for mitigating a disaster. That means that they are responsible for public safety. In other words, then they have to make sure that traffic management is under control, or you have gridlocks. They have to make sure that the egress and evacuation of cities and plans is done properly, so you don't have gridlocks, right? That is the role and responsibility of ODPM. So right now they have the entity existing in Homeland Security. It must be operated. The second thing that they
Well,
have to
that's
do,
what I'm saying, Doug.
yeah,
That's why George Bush created Homeland Security. So
correct,
all agency falls underneath that. So
right.
what we need to do, I mean, we're still building. We have to build out this Homeland Security. We just put it in there, but the public safety and all these things has to come under the
And and
jurisdiction
and
of
and
Homeland
one of the most
Security.
important things, Gary, is that the command and control is a government responsibility. So that, for
Right, yeah,
example,
exactly. So what I'm saying to
here they
this
say,
whole Homeland Security is not completed in its current structure yet. So
oh,
all these things has to come under
they
there where
right.
various ministries will do these.
So what it is that when you look at if you look at if you look at what we call an emergency operation center, they call it an EOC, right? The EOC is a system, right, whereby you have a group of persons who come together either virtually or physically, right, to command and control any situation or multiple situations, right? At the time of this event, that was in the morning, so it would not have had many other events. But what caused the problem is that although it was in the morning, there were traffic gridlocks before and after, which messed up from Kokorit come right. In other words, then it wasn't just about the time of the event; it was before and after. So, in other words, then I am saying NOC, right, is supposed to be operating properly. The NOC, this is the command and control here now. The NOC is the National 24-hour Surveillance Situational Awareness brain. That's the brain of the country. That is what is looking on while everybody else is sleeping. And it is looking on at all your major risks and threats that are ongoing on an ongoing basis, both covert and overt. Waking people and communicates with the military command center. It communicates with the police command center, which is a different thing. The police command center is separate from the NOC. The police command center deals with policing and commanding police operations, but it is not the NOC. The NOC is the brain. The NOC looks at the intelligence and other issues in all aspects of safety and security of the country. It is not and cannot be considered the police command center, right? The NOC is a different entity. When the NOC now communicates now and it stands up, any event over 20,000 in the country or 15 or 10,000, the ODPM has to stand up their National Emergency Operations Center, either virtually or physically. And the ODPM now brings 26 other emergency service functions, just like FEMA, together, so that they will now have all the other agencies like CDC, Red Cross, the ambulance system, the Fishermen's Association, the Water Taxi Association, the Maxi Taxi Association, PTSC, all the key persons involved in transport, the Ministry of Sports responsible and UDCOT responsible for the sporting facilities, so that you can develop park and ride. Queen's Park Savannah, you get Wayne and Peter Canhai on board, because you could use the Savannah in the morning to park vehicles in Port of Spain and don't let vehicles go down to the Savannah. You're setting up of your checkpoints so that you lock off the peninsula and you have a police road. In fact, a whole area where the police now will block the area and allow people to go in. Only persons who have a barcode, which you could go online and get your barcode. If you have to go and do a delivery for a restaurant, if you have to go down with your yacht club down the islands and you're a member of the yacht club, you have to go online for this morning and you log on and you get a barcode, because you will submit all your documents. You scan your ID, you scan your yacht club, your restaurant, license, whatever it is, you scan it on, and then when obviously the AI will look at everything and they'll give you your barcode. And you scan the barcode, you're green, you're gone. Now all of that has to be done, Chief. That's the only way this have to go forward.
So it's a lot of systems implementation have to take place to make it happen.
Yeah, and look at the logic in it, Sumant.
Yeah.
So in the event now, you have a massive tent, right? Or you have the military there. You have a command center. It's called the Venue Operation Command Center. We call it the VOC.
Right.
In the VOC now, you have all your heads, right? Your head of security, right? Your car parks, right? Your customer service, your caterers, right? Your health, okay? Your
And
Coast
that is
Guard,
located
your Coast
inside
Guard,
the venue. That is
right?
located inside the venue, right?
Yeah, inside the venue. You
Right.
have your Coast Guard representative. You have your exit gate, like your security for the gates. You have command. So the security guy who is in there now could communicate with his security people, right? The car park persons for your VIP and thing, they will communicate, right? You have also a person who will communicate with the park and ride now at Manny Ramjohn, in Point 14, in Atto Bolden, in Eastern, in the race course. You know what I mean? In the plaza, in the plaza there, by the junction there, um Val Park or wherever it is. Anywhere you have people park it, right? So you have the shuttles, the PTSC come in. The PTSC person will have a person inside there. You understand? So if they have any issues from the command center, it will be relayed to PTSC at their command center in PTSC, and their PTSC will communicate with their buses as it is. You understand? That is how it works. It's a one-way down for each agency, but in the VOC, in the thing, this is where they coordinate in. So anything that happens, they could open a gate and say, hey, you know what, boy, hey, open those two gates and let people start coming out from that side. You know what I mean? You have a representative from the water taxi person. You communicate with them and say, hey guys, send 10 taxis to me, right? Because we want to start moving people out. Of course, before you send those should have been inspected by the Coast Guard the morning before to make sure they have the safety vests, they have all of these things, they have water, they have certain things according to international standards to have that boat certified to do those transports. You understand? So this VOC now will have a police officer, and that police officer is the bronze commander. He will communicate to let me say, the Diego Martin police station. So they will set up the command, they'll stand up the command center at the police station where the silver commander is going to be. He is there now. He will know all his police officers, because at that command center, if he wants to move any police or more police or bring more police from other areas that is not doing anything and they want to move more police into the area, right, he could actually now go to the police command center. And the police command center in Port of Spain could deploy or move around police on the basis of the commissioner or the assistant commissioner or the goal commander who sits there, who stands there, who actually is physically there for that. So that is how that whole command system works. You understand? And that is how it was done for Showgum, Summit of Americas. It was done for all the ICC World Cup cricket games in Trinidad and Tobago. That was the magnificence and the seamless operations that we had, right? And that should be done in Trinidad from now on in terms of these large events. For TPL, when you go to Brianara, you'll have the same traffic. So I think they should put that in place. So if they want to consult us, this team, As I said, I'm happy to sit with them and tell them how they should do it, and make sure and do the training of all the gold commanders, silver
Mm-hmm.
commanders. I can't tell you the last time they were trained. I don't know who trained them, because it's not just being a silver commander. No, you have to know the incident command system.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the
Yeah.
the other commanders have to have their radios, so that the gold commander could communicate with the silver could communicate with the bronze. That
And
means your
and
whole police system is linked up there.
yeah.
Same thing
And
with the
Doc,
health. The health
and
has
Doc,
a bronze commander in there, Ministry of
yeah.
Health or the RHA. That person communicates back with the hospital where you have your silver commander. That's a doctor on call during that time, right? And the doctor on call will communicate with the ministry or an appointed gold commander for health, who will have
Yeah.
direct contact with the minister or any of the key legal, policy persons in the ministry. So if you have big things to happen, they will happen. You see, same thing with the
And Doc,
military. The
and Doc,
military officer communicates with any one of the divisions of the military. So if you have a rescue that occurs because a boat capsized, well, right away from the VOC, the military knows what is happening. They relate to the command center, the military command center. The military command center talks to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard deploys. You understand? So that is how it happens.
yeah, and Doc, you made a good point with the ICC, right? That infrastructure around the Brian Lara
I'm very
can
passionate
handle.
about this, because there's a way to do it,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
they can
I can.
handle the infrastructure. The infrastructure
and I
can
know how
handle
to do it. I'm not
the
boasting,
volume. Yeah, so
I
they
taught
definitely need to
people how to do
consult you.
this because I was trained myself in this.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
so yeah, so someone should reach out to you and definitely need to consult you with regards to that,
But
because
yeah,
that Brian Lara area there, the infrastructure, the road and stuff can handle that volume, right?
and not to talk about health, right? They must have any event more than 1,000 to 2,000 persons. You have to have a you have to have a your health tent,
the
right?
health
The
and
medical tent must be in the compound, right? It has to be in the compound with two paramedics, preferably a doctor for anything over 5,000, in the compound, and a nurse, and they must be able to move with a stretcher like how we do for big games on the field. Move with the stretcher. So that guy who died in the Fet in Port Spain, right? They should have had two paramedics there with a stretcher who would have moved through the crowd, right? Get the guy on a stretcher immediately and move him as soon as possible to a safe area, and not have people all around this guy who is trying to get to live, and everybody around him.
Definitely, definitely. Because this type of crowd when you're talking about 20,000 and stuff, right? That requires a certain level of expertise. And I think
but
you have that,
Yeah,
that's your
I think
area,
I'm pretty
qualification,
much done
etc.
there with that.
So yeah, so I think somebody
I
should
just
reach
hope
out to
that
you.
they ask us to help them. Ken. I mean, I don't know if Ken is still here, but
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
Gary,
here.
Sumant. I mean,
yeah, man, I see it here. I mean, I took a drive down Fort Lauderdale last night to have dinner, and the amount of boats coming down and coming using the intracoastal waterway is like traffic jam.
yeah,
It's like traffic jam because everybody going to dinner in the night, late,
yeah,
early
yeah.
night, and then the boat show started yesterday
Mm.
and continued down to the 15th. So normally,
Yeah,
opposite Fontainebleau, Hilton, downtown at 41st Street, they have all these multi-million-dollar yachts parked up from our side, and it's just like a nice thing. Just cruise down in the night time, and if you see traffic there in the night, everybody wants to
yeah,
look
yeah,
at the spectacle, and it's crowd management. You
yeah.
see the involvement of everybody, man. Fire service, exactly what Dr.
Yes,
saying.
but the thing about
Yeah.
it is that we've been reaching
No.
out.
It's you
We've
see,
been
it will
reaching
operate
out.
smoothly in a lot of these places because they already rehearsed it. They did it before. It's part of the
Rehearse it. That's
legislation.
right.
Yeah,
And people are
it's systemic.
trained. People
It
are
becomes
trained in the
systemic.
system. Yeah,
Yeah, it's systemic. So right now we need to create the systems and make it systemic.
that's what I'm saying. That is
Yeah,
the whole core of it. And make
yeah,
sure the people who are in charge understands the system and next steps who handles it exactly, that they don't fumble at that critical point, that
yeah,
if someone is injured or something, what do you do? I mean, you
yeah,
start to fumble. Hey, look at you. running like a, like a chicken without a head.
I think what happens is that the ministers will say, the advisors will obviously advise them, and the ministers will say, okay, look, um, it's the status quo. In other words, then it's like we don't need to change it because it's not a problem, right? Something will happen. Okay, a person would fall off a boat, right? A person might have died. All right. The thing is, you might have had nobody reports. A guy might have been trying to go to Sinclair nursing home and get in a traffic, and he got a heart attack and died. Nobody really complained. Nobody knows. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
the thing about it is that it's just the status quo is allowed to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, Carnival will come. The big focus, as I see it right now, is telling all the police officers that they have to secure Carnival. Good. Secure Carnival means pretty much the securing Carnival in Port of Spain,
Mm-hmm.
right? And maybe some, to a lesser extent, in San Fernando Point and maybe Rio Claro, whatever it is, Sangre Grande or whatever. So, in other words, then policing is really about crowd safety,
Mm-hmm.
about looking for the profiling, maybe traffic management and in the city itself, arresting people or looking for people who want to pickpocket. You know what I mean? So those are the kind of policing we're talking about. But I mentioned that there are bigger crowds on beaches, right?
Yep.
There are children who are using beaches. Then I'm talking about public health, right? A lot of these beaches, they don't even have portaloos, right? They don't have place for people to shit and pee. Good, but you'll have hundreds of people on the beaches now. So there's a whole different thing for Ministry of Local Government, right, to put in place garbage collection. People are going to start camping from Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Good. When they
Right.
camping, the garbage builds up, right? Where are they going to put it? You know what they do? They throw it in the bush. You understand? So again, this is something a lady, remember the other time a lady lost her life in a river, right? And we talked about it, and after that, nobody talked about signage and parking, and nothing happened. The lady lost her life, right? And that was it. Okay, we forget about it. You understand? So if we continue this way, 5 years will elapse, and then PNM will come in power and blame us for not putting things in place, and they go do the same thing for 5 years, and the country remains the same.
Exactly. So you see, it comes back to what I always say. We could never progress and move forward as a nation because our development strategy is sideways, it's lateral.
Yeah,
It's never vertical. It's always lateral. You can
yeah,
never go forward. One, 2 steps forward, 2 steps or 3 steps backward because of the same political system that, UNC come to try to do the right things. PNM takes over in 5 years, everything goes back to the same old, same old. So that the country per se, we can never go forward or advance ourselves as a country. It's
yeah,
always sideways, this side to that side, to PNM, UNC. Now, any party there, sideways.
yeah.
So there's no forward momentum. It's
I
always
think
a,
also the
Hello,
failure to
can you guys
recognize
hear
the
me?
subject matter experts,
Checking my mic.
divorce politics from the whole situation.
yeah,
Try to
yeah.
identify the
You
persons
hear
who
me,
are your
guys?
subject matter
I hear
experts
you,
who
Gary.
are
Yeah.
willing
Okay,
to help
thanks.
you, right? In other words, and it's not about just you as the country, right? And you have SMEs who have the training, qualifications, and capacity to advise your advisors. So even if it means, okay, look, Doc, I have read your documents. Samantha, I have read your documents that you have submitted. I mean, I didn't have time to read it, but I asked my advisor to read it. Right? He advises me that a lot of the things you are saying is contemporary, right? Is something that I guess we need or we don't need, or right now is not a matter of importance because we have other things to think about.
Hmm.
Fine, but it's something that we need to look at and create the pathways so that it can be developed, right, before we leave government or before we go into another elections, right? So why don't you set up a meeting with the advisors? Let us have a panchite. Let us go through some of the things that you're suggesting. Let us look at the feasibility because you might be saying one thing, but you might understand our aspect of it. What is happening at the ministry? We have technical people who are paid to do the same thing that you are telling us, right? So in other words, then fine. So in other words, then I can't go and tell my PS that I'm going to bring in Dr. Ramrup who knows more about the NOC, because you are the technical people. You supposed to know what the NOC is,
You wasn't
right?
paid
So
for that. Yeah.
yeah, so
Look,
why bring Ramrup to talk about NOC? Because he's a doctor. He don't really have any knowledge of NOC. We have
this is
technical
what the
people who could
thing.
do that.
This is the same damn point. They feel that who knows about crowd management? What is the biggest crowd they have ever managed in
Yeah,
life? These advisors or the ministers, whoever is in charge of this thing, like as you say, I'm very passionate about these things. I've been to World
Listen,
Cup.
gentlemen, I don't couldn't care less of their current structure.
yeah.
We're here to make changes.
So I,
So
Yeah,
I
I'm
but
think that
making this bold and
they
clear
should
here.
start by saying,
So
okay, let the
Dr.
carnival
Ramrup,
finish.
based
Doc,
on
we
what we
can't do a lot
saw
of the
with
things that you're saying
this
about because
this event,
obviously we have to get it right. Fine. But we have CPL coming end of the year and we're going to have traffic jam in Brian Lara. The same questions would be pointed. Are you willing to be the government that didn't change it? Because when PNM was there, they had the CPL and it was a big, massive problem.
mm,
And then when they had the World Cup in Brian Lara, it's the same damn thing. People complain, people get bounced on, cars get stolen. It had gridlock going into San Fernando. Everybody complained, the opposition complained. Now you're in government, you want to prevent that happening, and it is going to happen because you do have CPL coming, right? 20,000 people in Brian Lara, just like they
mm,
have done anything. So let us start planning from there, you know.
mm.
well, listen to me. I keep saying I didn't get into this to maintain
But them
status
boys in
quo.
them, they
No,
Yeah.
gone.
No,
I'm,
we
I'm here. I'm
yeah, we
here.
here.
What about Ken? Ken, you
Yeah, I'm
there or
here.
you gone?
You guys didn't hear
I'm
me or
here.
I
not?
know you say he was under the weather. I know Gary stepped out for a while.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Doc,
I'm
I'm here.
here.
You can hear me?
Yeah. So yeah.
Are
So
you guys hearing me?
I would say that let the carnival finish. Now we can't really do much again, obviously, because next few days is carnival. Um, but post carnival, there are certain issues that have to be addressed. I think crowd management, traffic management, right, arising from these events, the whole legislation with respect to approvals for
You
these
guys hearing me?
licenses.
Yeah,
Yeah, we hear
Gary.
you. Yeah, we hear you. We hear
Hello.
you. Yeah.
Yes, Gary.
Okay, because I was speaking and somehow the system blocked me. I don't know what's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on.
yeah. That happened to me just now. I had to log back
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
But I think we definitely have to look at. We have to take into consideration the traffic gridlock that occurred when you had the multiple car accidents recently. The traffic gridlock that occurred when the police had the roadblocks.
Doc,
Right.
what I want to make a recommendation is and request that you write something up like you did before, based on what you saw there, the observation. Make a recommendation, and let's see what happens there. At least
Well,
we
I
think
tell you
about.
what,
I want
Gary.
from our end
You
is
see
that we made the recommendation.
those two documents that I sent recently, the one with the traffic management and the recent one with the flog tag and the whatever, I sent it to every single minister, right, in their personal WhatsApp, and I sent it to the Prime Minister. I sent it to Peter Kanhai. I sent it to Gautam Maharaj, who seems to be given a lot of responsibility, right? And I sent it to him. He was the only one that replied, and Dr. Narendra Rupnarayan from Princess Town, from Naparima,
Prima. Not
he
Prima.
replied, and he said excellent documents, right? And of course, the other person that replied was the Honorable, um, the Prime Minister's husband, Greg. So the thing about it is that those were the only three people who even acknowledged and said it was a good document, right? And Dr. Rupnarayan said that he will try to forward it, right, to the relevant people, right? Because one of the things I asked for was traffic lights. I'm sorry, huge lighting at the Devi intersection. That intersection where the market is and all those roundabout and whatever,
You
it's
could miss
black.
that easily in the night, eh?
It's pitch black, and
Yeah.
it's amazingly you don't know what's happening there, and they need to put some lights there, and not only there, all the major intersections where you have similar crossroads. So I even sent it to the Minister of Transport because I know him from when we used to do the Prime Minister's children's Christmas treat. Right when we did that, I used to be with Peter Kanhai. I used to be with Eli, Jaku. Right, I worked with
Taku.
Vishnu
Taku.
Balrup and Zakure. I
Yeah.
worked with all of them when we were doing the Prime Minister's Children's Christmas treat. They know me. I sent it to them as well. right? Because we had that under control. ODPM did the logistics for that. We worked with PTSD, but we brought thousands of children to those stadia. We had venue operating command centers. We not a single one child got injured with a bus in Rio Claro, right? But that was a national program run many years with the Prime Minister giving treats both in Trinidad and Tobago. And I was the ODPM person who controlled the logistics and operations for all of those events. You understand? So and we had over 10,000 people who used to be at those stadia and thing when she used to come to give out those gifts. So it can be done, and I have the expertise, right? We can develop it either through ODPM, obviously, or privately now, and we could begin to plan, right? As early as March, right, so that we can begin to plan, right, for the rainy season and for the events that will happen in this country come the next few months and next year carnival, so we can make the experience and make the safety better, right?
I
So
think
I,
that
I don't know
you
what
guys,
else
you
I
hear me?
could do because I sent the document to you all saw the documents, and I
Yeah,
sent it to
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
I
I
saw
sent
that.
it to everybody. I sent
Yeah,
it to everybody individually,
right.
right? So I don't know what else to do now.
Exactly. This is the thing. You don't know where to turn. And I mean, I share your passion, Doc, because when I was there in Trinidad, I was in the same boat. You send the things relevant to each minister. You know them. You have communicated with them before. Same thing with me, and the response is very tardy. I should say
And it
at the
is
very.
topical. It is topical because it hit the press, the newspaper, mainstream
Mm,
media. It's on social
mm,
media,
mm.
and the exact document I sent, I gave them the example of Flugtag in 2011, where the same thing happened. Gridlock, people dying in the sea, right? The people complaining, the large scale event with the boats, with irregular practice, whatever it is, the same thing. And I itemized all the chaos that occurred then, and then I mentioned what could be done. I itemized all the things that needed to be done. I sent it to the Homeland Security Ministry, Defense Minister, the Transport Minister, the Works Minister, the Local Government Minister, right? All the people involved in the corporations in the area. I sent it to. I sent it to every single minister, all the MPs that I know on the chat and who I know and have their personal numbers, and not a single one except, as I said, those three people who replied to me. So let us see. Not even saying, okay, doc, we'll see. You know what I mean? Okay, we will have a chat after. Nothing, 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 nothing. So let's see what happens.
I hope it's not a dead end thing, and next week on the same track where it's going to
Yeah.
happen
Well,
again,
the good
and then
the good thing about it is that when you send these documents right now on WhatsApp or whatever, they're there for life, whether you like it or not. And and if anything happens later,
the
right,
goals,
somebody
yeah,
dies or there's another gridlock, and we have about two deaths in down the islands, or Bayanara has the traffic again, right, and you have a big fervor, a big furor. The document was sent, and it was sent by me, and it is not only a document that said these are the problems, it gives
solutions,
solutions.
solutions, yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
And
yeah.
a lot of these solutions are feasible, achievable, right? It's contemporary, it's international standards we're talking
Best
about.
practices for the best
That's correct.
practices,
And
and
standard operating procedures do
SOP is
exist.
correct, yes.
Yes. Yes. So let's see. And it's also will help you win the elections come 2030. So let's see.
I keep on saying, Doc, that these things have to be driven by the ministers themselves, and if they are not aware or they're not au courant with what it entails, then they ain't going to drive these processes. That's one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Secondly, I
But
also say the same.
Suman,
Yeah,
our objective was to prevent them from being blindsided, right? That was the mission, right? And I mean, all as much as we reach out, we are getting very minimum response, and then you see chaos taking place, right? So again, we'll put one more thing together with the recommendation for as we see. Let's see how Carnival plays out. Let's see how it's handled.
Yeah, let the
Based on
carnival
the
finish. Yeah. Mhm.
based on the chaos that we see took place with Stink and Dirty, it really was Stink and Dirty how it handled.
Correct.
And
Correct.
what we are recommending is that certain things be put in place so that going forward these events get certain scrutiny and certain approvals. Should be certain organization, various ministries, like I said before. Ministry of Culture has to be involved. Transport Ministry has to be involved. The defense definitely be involved because defense is charged
Coordinated, man. It's a coordinate.
is involved with the police, right? So, but the structure for whole homeland security function has a lot of work to be done, and we will make those recommendations based on our observation. And again, we have it in writing. If our advice and suggestion is not being considered, then we know how to go about it on the next time around.
Yeah.
But definitely we're going to make the recommendations, and we are not recommending. We're recommending things that are very feasible and easy to do. Is just putting the right structure and management in place.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
also send a FYI to the Prime Minister's email, FYI, and I send FYI to the other ministers' email. For example, Minister John, all right, the key ministers, right? I send it to their emails. For example, Minister Khadija, very important because local government plays a very integral role in this whole thing. So I send it to those emails as well because I say maybe WhatsApp they don't get it or they don't read
Yeah,
it fine, but at least the email goes in so that they have it both in email and WhatsApp, right?
Yeah, but
So yeah.
the thing is, Doc, I think that sometimes it don't reach the ministers themselves
I think that maybe
because
how
somebody
you mean
reads
yeah,
it
the
don't reach
yeah,
email.
the? How you mean it don't reach
Yeah.
the
no,
minister?
it don't
The
reach it,
access
Danny.
that we
No,
have
no, no,
on WhatsApp, I do get a response.
Danny. These ministers, they have their secretarial staff, and not one person, secretarial staff that prints his email and forward them, channels them to the various persons who work with the
Yeah.
minister.
I am not even talking about. I'm talking about direct WhatsApp message where I get a
So,
response and acknowledgement.
yeah, but
We
you
ain't
will
talking
get
about that.
once in a way. But imagine that someone sends an email and the minister really doesn't see it.
Listen to me. Whatever you guys recommend, I send it via many ways. Okay.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Okay.
But
All right.
but
And I do get a response.
you have to understand how these ministries are structured, Gary. Their secretarial staff, their
Listen.
advisory staff, they go
I
through
don't even want
channels.
to know that because I know to a fact. Um, I know to
Hello,
a fact how
hello.
the thing it operates there, and we are supposed to function in a way to override that to make sure our government doesn't get in ambush, right? So I'll join you guys in a few minutes.
All right. Yeah, Doc. Understanding how these things operate, sometimes, I'm not saying all of it, but sometimes it doesn't reach the minister's
Yeah,
desk.
I personally feel that like they probably have two phones now, and a lot of them would have two phones. Eh?
And
Um,
with the iPhones, it kicks out yesterday's email, everything starts
yeah.
afresh.
So now
So,
they have the timer where they have the disappearing messages, right? So
correct.
um, but I know, and then when they get the messages, probably by time evening, the person would have either deleted the ones that as not
That's
necessary.
correct. And that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
Exactly the point. So,
yeah,
even though we send it in good faith and so on, we think that they get seeing it.
yeah,
Once it kicks out with a timing mechanism,
yeah,
what happens?
yeah,
But
When
email,
things are
emails,
happening to embarrass a government that I support and I put my name to it, I'm going to raise my voice. Okay?
you know,
I am going to raise my voice. I don't care who vex. Because, I make a lot of effort behind this party and the government. And I intend to protect the government interests at the same time because it's our interest. And if this government is looking bad or anything jeopardizes the reputation of this government and our ability to make certain success in the country, I am going to raise my voice regardless of who vex.
Well, like what we have is sadly, it's a it's a problem where I don't think we will ever come out of. Right? I give you an example. I won't call names, but I went for an interview recently online for the director of health at Southwest, and you know, a person who I know very much, um, related to the minister, asked a question like, "What I will do to reduce the amount of lawsuits and that the RHAs undergo." Right now, I teach this at UTT. Using the enterprise risk management and root cause analysis. I taught it to Eastern when PNM was in power. I did courses for Eastern Regional with Soyafat. The late Soyafat was the CEO there, and that has improved the quality of care in the RHA. Measurable improvement. And I indicated all the ways that this enterprise risk management tool could do that, creating a risk focused organization, with the doctors and the quality department. I mean, it's a standard question, a routine answer, you know. And next question was from one of the counselors on the board, and he asked a very simple question: how would you deal with the different people, in the organization, you know? And of course, the answer was, as we would all answer, Sumant, in our interviews, is communication is based on the level at which you are communicating both informally and formally using all the tools that you have at hand, but at the same time having respect, for people who you're dealing with and facilitating rather than, demanding, and using your different styles of leadership, transactional, translational, and laissez-faire, depending on the case, talking to people, not trying to make people ashamed or blame them, which is the basis of the whole thing, right? And the next question was, from the chairman was, how would you deal with the industrial relations? How would you address them if you're given that job? And the answer was very simple. You're part of a team, and there's an IR team. There is a legal officer, industrial relations officer, human resources officer. When you say something to anybody, it has to be vetted. It has to be almost rehearsed. You know what I mean? You can't just off the bat go and say something. You cannot make promises. You can't talk down to people, and you cannot put the RHA or the Ministry of Health in a bad position by making claims that you have. You have a strategy by the government, by the RHA, and you have to abide by that strategy. You understand? And one of the other persons on the interview who, when the empath striked, he's the advisor to the minister, right? And when the empath strike, I was the only doctor in the hospital that kept things going at casualty, and he hated my guts since then. And I know that he was gonna fail me because he doesn't like my head. Okay, and he was in interview. I don't know if he specifically went to make sure he interviewed me, but he asked me a legal question, and I said, "Well, I'm not an attorney. I mean, I'm a doctor. You know what I mean? And I would go to court, and I would teach people how to go to court and whatever." Suffice it to say, Sumant,
Medical
I'm the
legal.
only person. I'm the only person in this country who has an MBA in healthcare management, right, and a master's in forensic medicine, right. I served as a medical director, served as a CEO in the ODPM. In terms of qualifications alone, in all the five categories, I would have scored very high. You know, I actually came fifth, right?
Wow.
I came fifth. There were seven people, and in that fifth, I was actually tied with a person who is a madman, who was actually fired from the RHA three times, as a medical director,
Mm.
you know. So, interestingly, of course, they scrapped the interviews. I was informed that the interviews were scrapped. For whatever reason, they will have to do it over, from what I understand, right? I don't know what went on. But I'm giving this example. I don't know how much people are listening, but I think that the government has to stop this nonsense, right? Across the board.
I will see my part out. Go ahead.
Yeah, they have to stop this nonsense across the board. Right? If you are interviewing for an executive position, whether it's a CEO, whatever it is, go to the human resource companies. They have a lot of them.
Yeah.
Hire somebody, right? Let them come and run the interview for you. Let them, whoever wants to be on it is fine, but you have to have a competent interviewer, a competent human resources specialist who could come and assist you in these sort of interviews, right? People who have no idea. I'm sure the questions were not the same, right? I used to interview people. I know the criteria. I was a doctor. I had the same questionnaires. I know the sections that you have to, your qualifications, your
And
experience, your track record. There are about
and
five.
the
Yeah,
waiting that goes with each section too. I have been
that's correct.
on the same
Yeah,
end, doc. I
right. So
know
we
this,
know. It's not we don't know. We know what is going to be there. So
but
if I,
let me
yeah,
go one step ahead, doc.
yeah, go ahead.
And just from what my understanding is that when, like, I am appointed as the head of the interview team, and I say, okay, Mr. Singh, you'll get that coming from the minister. Hey, I want A, B, and C in these positions.
Yeah,
You know what you have to do.
yeah,
That is what they tell you. So you are briefed by the minister beforehand. You have been briefed. I say, hey, Mr. Singh, I want A, B, and C to be, my this, my that, and my that in that order. So Mr. Singh, what you have to do. Now, how is it? Am I going to compromise my job now and go against the minister's wishes?
yeah,
That is the point.
yeah,
That's the core issue.
yeah,
And that is why I always say, exactly endorsing what you are saying, Doc, that let, like Price Waterhouse or Deloitte or somebody be, or the HR agent to
yeah.
recruit senior level positions
Yes, 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 yes,
and
yes, yes.
without ministerial
Yeah.
interference,
Yeah, you see, certain positions have to be non-political, right? And I think,
non-political. And that
yeah,
is how you get the best
yeah,
person
and
to do the
that's
damn
correct. And
job.
that is how you will win the election again, because
Yeah.
you're going to improve things the way
Performance,
that
you
it
see,
should be done. Yeah,
performance,
yeah.
you
So
know.
once you go back the same way that PNM did for the last 10 years, you're gonna run in the same hole, and you're gonna do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm seeing it. Yeah, and it's happening. It's happening exactly how it went the last time around.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, imagine the minister is telling you they want this person, and that person to be, director here, manager there, and manager in the next section. And you
Yeah.
have to you have no choice but to comply,
But I mean, obviously, you're guided
right?
by, and you have to. So that's it.
Because next thing you're looking for a job the next time around, next couple of
Yeah,
years, or
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
coming to contract renewal. That's it for you, and so. So
Yeah.
these things happen. The structure itself of selecting senior level positions has to be changed or has to be reviewed, and let independent persons, you know, be the one. I don't know if you know, but I think it's around 2007, 2008. They had um, this company based in Marval who used to do all the recruitment for the
Yeah, yeah.
PNM at that time.
I appeared in interviews for like CEO well, under the PNM,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
CEOs of TRHA, North Central, and thing, and they only had one member on the board, and the rest was
I
the
think
human resource
that was
company. Yeah,
Neil Parson's company from that. So he was the minister around there.
yeah,
He and Mr. Swarat Singh company in
yeah,
Marava. They were the ones who did all the recruitment for PLM over there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
I had to do they had to do a scoring as well. One of the the tests where they will go through it, and I forget what it's called, the psychometric testing.
psychometric testing. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
the psychometric. Yeah, of course.
I did that, and amazingly, it was, it's a proper interview. Of course, they still are the people, but I mean, the thing about it is that the way it was done was professional. So
Well, you see,
they still hire the people,
the
but
psychometric testing is, they will tell you, is not in the weighting on that is not too high then compared to the other sides, because sometimes you may be ahead. I went half a point ahead of someone in psychometric testing, but I also topped the interview on the other side, so they had no choice but to give it to me. that particular job as a director. But the psychometric testing, they can't interfere with that because that is a computerized, it's a computerized testing, and that is, marking and so on. There's no interference on that side of it. But it can mix the score sheet on the other side, on the direct questioning in the interviews, and they could play with those figures, the scoring and the weighting and what have you. So,
Well, as I said, for the past 10 years, I've appeared to about maybe 20 interviews on LinkedIn, and obviously they had the people, so you only get a job with them, and well, it seems probably going to
the
be
volume is very low. Anybody else? Can you hear loud
Yeah,
and clear?
I hear them very low there.
You too, yeah,
But
very
but
low.
Samad, Doc, I have to exit. I want to take some medication.
probably would try and see what happens in the future.
All right, Ken, well, feel better,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I want to take some medication. Okay then. Take care. Bye.
Right, nice. Gary, you on the ball?
I'm not hearing who's speaking. Is Suman there? Is he
Yeah,
speaking or?
I'm here. Well, let's wrap up now. Let's wrap up
Yeah,
the evening.
it's 11:13 already, and I think we had a good
Yeah,
conversation. We see
Yeah,
how it
yeah.
we,
goes, and
we
we
can wrap up
let
here.
the carnival settle, and hopefully, Gary, we could probably, well, we already sent the documents to all of them. Maybe we could just send it again, and hopefully, maybe we'll create a little either a virtual meeting or a physical meeting.
Or
Hopefully, people get to,
post-mortem,
yeah,
or post-mortem on,
yeah,
with the way forward and so on.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
there are a number of issues that, I mean, for example, well, I know that you all have some financial, some of you have some with AI and other things, and I had mentioned things like the ambulance system, the public safety when it comes to one, traffic, crowd management, three, our safety at beaches and rivers and bridges, and then where the girl went down in the river.
Down the way there, yeah.
Right. We talked about the whole NOC and how the NOC should be transformed. We talked about ODPM, right? Where obviously the whole public safety disaster mitigation system needs to be brought into contemporary levels rather than going back to some old fashioned ideas in the past, and that needs to be upgraded. So there are a number of things that needs to be sorted out. Forensics. I mean, I haven't gotten into too much of the forensic part, but the use of the DB campus for forensic medicine training and training the DMOs, training the prosecutors, training the young doctors to how to attend court, how to develop a expert witness report. You know what I mean? These are things that would help, right, and reduce the thing. Yeah. So let's see.
Okay. Sorry,
Okay,
let's wrap up.
we
Yeah.
keep in contact with the WhatsApp over the weekend, I guess, and we'll see how it goes. Have a safe weekend, and I'll see you guys hopefully
All
next week.
right.
Yeah.
Enjoy your fantastic Friday.
Yes,
I'll
yes,
be
yes.
going to the boat show again
I
on
go
Friday.
have
I
fun.
mean,
I'm going to a wedding on Saturday. My cousin is getting married, so we're gonna go and have some fun, and then Sunday morning I head up to the beach and sail.
nice. That's the best place to be, man. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Go
Right.
and catch some fish this weekend and
All right.
relax. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay then. Take care.
Okay, Gary.
Gary probably dropped.
Yeah. All right then.
All
Good.
right.